now we're going to kind of move away from just the very technical things and just kind of get back to the personal. So in your experiences, what are some stories that have always stayed with you?
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Yeah. Because they're the ones that stay with you that you don't want to stay.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that come around a lot. But good ones, I will always remember the first ambulance call I made with the person we were talking, Deanna and I were talking about. The paramedic, his name was Pat Casper, and he's the one who really reinforced to me what it was to take care of people, no matter what we personally think if they were an emergency or not. Because that's one of the difficulties our crews have, is that when you're constantly doing 911 calls and you're constantly going to these big events, life and death and all that, then somebody calls you and says, my stomach's hurt all weekend long and I don't feel good, you need to take me to the hospital. They tend to, rate that as like a 1 or a 0 on their level of what I need to be doing today. What I need to be doing today is I need to be saving a life. That's what I became a firefighter for, is to save lives. But the first call we went to was an elderly lady who had sat in her home all weekend long with the flu, and she was sick. She had the flu, she had a fever, and she had stomach ache and all that kind of stuff. But to her, that was the sickest she'd ever been in her life. Mm-hmm. And she had no idea of, what our day was going to be like or had been like. She just needed somebody to help her. And my partner was so good at saying, you know what, ma'am, we're going to take care of you. We're going to get you to the hospital. They're going to make sure everything's taken care of. And before you know it, you're going to be back home and you're going to be okay. And it was that caring part that was more important than the IV I gave her or the oxygen I gave her. All those things helped. And those were medical treatments that she needed. But what she really needed was just somebody to say, you're going to be okay. Somebody's going to take care of you. Mm-hmm. And, I remember now, the times that I've been really, really sick, having somebody there just telling you, don't worry about it, we got you, you're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. That means more to you than all the, no, you still want the pain meds. Yeah, give me the pain meds. But that means so much, it helps you so much get through whatever it is. Because I've had some things that, they gave me the pain meds and this still isn't working. I need somebody to be holding that hand, telling me I'm going to be okay. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So those are the kind of memorable things. I remember those. I remember delivering my 5th baby in one night on the way to the hospital. It's like, wow. Really? People would always go, wow, is it great? Do you get to deliver? Yes, I don't get to deliver babies. I have to. This is not like, I feel sorry for the lady. I mean, she would much rather be at a hospital in a nice environment with pain meds and all that kind of stuff, instead of going down 610, this is not what, I'm sure she had in mind when mm-hmm. she was going to have a baby. So, yeah, those are the other things. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the things that I look back on my career in the fire department have to do about camaraderie. It is a different lifestyle being a firefighter. You sit at the station and you live with these people. It's one thing to work with people and spend 8 hours and then you go home. It's another thing to spend 24 hours with them. And a lot of times the guys spend more time with their fellow co-workers in the fire station than they do with their spouses, because their spouses work. They see their spouse when they get home for a couple of hours. They go to sleep, they wake up, they're gone, and they're gone 24 hours with these guys, So yeah, it's a lot of learning new family members.
Sacrifice, I'd imagine, as well.
Yeah, that does come with it. I mean, you don't get Christmas on Christmas. You don't get your birthday. If you do have your birthday and you're at the fire station, you're expected to bring cake and ice cream, which is, of course, a reverse. You bring the cake and ice cream. So, Yeah, but it's one of the advantages of having EMS in the fire service, is you have that family that you can go to. Y'all were talking about how you deal, or how we deal with some of the more difficult cases and the difficult things. When you have something really bad happen, you can go back to the station and talk to somebody in your family there at the station is gonna want to talk, or will talk and sit down and talk with you. And I became a member of what we call the Critical Incident Stress Management Team. It's a group of firefighters that volunteer their time, that when there is a critical incident, something that very bad happens, a death or a severe injury or something like that, we go to the station, pull that crew together, and have them, and there's a very structured way of having them talk about their feelings and what happened. That's the first step, but you've got to get that first step, because too many times our firefighters are trained to be internalize everything.
Wow, yeah.
And when you do that, unfortunately, we also have firefighters have a very high incidence of suicide.
Right, that's a lot to bear.
Yeah, and they start reflecting on that, and then it's very difficult for them to handle that. So we found that if we can deal with that at the moment that they're trying to deal with it, that gets them started down the right path. And there's still a lot of follow-ups. We are fortunate, we have 2 staff psychologists in the fire department. Both those doctors take care of our members when they're having difficulties with either stressful situations, be it work, or even if it does happen, this family related or something, because that affects how they perform their job.
Right.
So they're very good. And last year they did a very department-wide program that dealt with handling, looking for the signs of possible suicide.
Right.
In the department. And they were able to, by training the captains and other people in the department, pick up on a lot of members that were having problems that nobody even knew about. Yeah. So that is but having that family gives us a support group for all these bad things.
Someone who's experienced it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause my wife would always, like, when we go to parties, she would always introduce me as this day. Oh, and he's a paramedic for the fire department. And the first question people love to ask me was, "What's the worst thing you ever saw?"
Oh wow, yeah.
And my answer to them usually is, "You don't want to know." I know what you're asking, but no, you don't want to know that one, because I don't want to even remember that one. So, yeah, it's strange. You get a different perspective of people. And society, and I mean, if you've ever been through something really stressful, traumatic, that's what they say is that people then somebody will come to you the next day and say, "I just can't believe that such and such didn't have the right ice cream," and I'll say, like, really, that's important to you? Yeah, it doesn't matter to you anymore. It's like, put your perspective a little bit, change a little bit, and luckily, I think a lot of our paramedics have been able to do that, because they get the worst of the worst. The EMTs and the firefighters, they have a good support group, because, like, you're one person on a crew of 4 on a fire truck.
Right.
But the paramedics a lot of times have to deal with a lot more of the stressfulness than sometimes the EMTs do. I remember when I was a paramedic, and we used to take people to Ben Taub Hospital, the old Ben Taub Hospital, which we called the zoo.
Right.
And they would be so busy at Ben Taub Hospital, where they were doing actual surgery in the hallway in the emergency center.
Wow.
Because they didn't have enough trauma rooms in the emergency center, and the surgery suites were filled with gunshot wounds and everything else. So the doctors are there, and they would be what we call cracking the chest. They, open up the person's chest to reach in there and either stop whatever was bleeding or try and manually start the heartbeat. And many times the doctors were so busy that when somebody died that we brought in, they'd say, "Hey, so-and-so didn't make it. Can you go tell the family?" Because the doctors didn't, their hand is over here
And they're trying to help
doing
you,
something
yeah.
else. Good, go do that. And I learned really quick about going into the room and telling the family that I'm sorry, but your son didn't make it or whatever. And that was
That's a big thing
tough.
to them, but it's everyday
Yeah.
thing that the doctors and paramedics.
Yeah,
do.
and it was, and that was something that that was, wow, that was tough to learn how to cope with it at that level, because you have to understand how the family's feeling. Like you said, that's the worst thing that's their whole world is caving in around them. But in 15 minutes, you have to be back in
And
the
do
ambulance
something
and
else.
taking care of somebody else.
Mm.